Hello, welcome back to Leicester Fan TV. This is the Fox's Focus show. We'll be talking all things Leicester. I'm joined by Simon. Hello, Simon.
Good evening to you, Jono. How are you, mate?
Tired, but yeah, fighting through it. So I think before we go into the doom and gloom, I think everyone's talked about it, but for one last time, I just want to, I'm wearing the GOAT shirt. Just want to say. He's done so much for the club. He is Mr. Leicester. So yeah, it's real. I was really sad watching. I was buzzing. I think that's the last time I'm going to celebrate with Leicester for a long time. I screamed so much when he scored. I was crying when he went. But yeah, end of an era.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the club put up those pictures of him taking his stuff out the training ground for the last time, and I guess it kind of sinks in then, doesn't it? That's it. He's just you just got used to him being there and playing every week, and relying on him as a team, to get us those goals. And they're big boots to fill, Jono. The club's got some work to do this summer.
Yeah, well, we don't want to go too much on Jamie Vardy. I think it's he's moved on. As a club, we need to move on. We've loved him, he's appreciated him, but as Clibbo has rightly said, we've made some strange decisions. We've made not just strange decisions, we've made appalling decisions. And, Simon's not happy with the decision that might be coming up, which is Russell Martin being appointed manager when Ruud goes end of the season. And you're already shaking your head. We're saying behind closed doors how you don't like his tippy-tappy football. So if he does get announced as manager, how are you going to feel?
I mean, John, we've got an opportunity, haven't we? We've gone down this season because we've made some bad decisions. I didn't like Cooper. I thought it was a wrong fit. He was so different from Maresca. It was always going to take the players time to acclimatise to that. He wasn't given time. We bring in Van Nistelrooy. We knee jerk and we do that. A lot of us as fans were calling for it at the time. In hindsight, probably a mistake. And we've suffered that this season. And whilst obviously Vardy getting the goal this weekend just gone, and there's a few shreds of positivity in there this season. That by and large, it's been awful. And we've got an opportunity now to wipe the slate clean this summer, bring in someone new, or stay with Van Nistelrooy if that's what the club thinks, and start to rebuild, because inevitably, we're going to have a good portion of our players leave the club this summer. It just scares the life out of me that we're going to make another iffy decision that means that we're going to struggle next season.
Exactly, and Ben's rightly put. A couple of okay results and feel good moment with Vardy, but everyone forgets that disaster seasons this has been. It's been a horrendous season. And it's not just like, I think when we went down last time, a few seasons ago, we kind of felt we're going down, but I feel that we had a really good team to rebuild going into the Championship to win it. I don't think anyone's got that feeling. We're going into next season with no direction of manager, no direction of players. We've got a PSR, charge hanging over our head. We have no idea whose players are staying here or going. Southampton have got this plan for, I feel like they're better structured than us at the moment for going forward. So have Ipswich. The next season is going to be an eye-opener for this now, for me, says it if Top is a decent owner or not. If he does the right thing by trying to sell all the crap in all our players, if he gets the right manager, and if he listens to the fans. If he doesn't, I want King Power out, because we've got a great opportunity to rebound in terms of a rebuild. We've got great youngsters to invest into. We've got excellent training facilities. We can get Lee Carsley, a manager who is unheard of in terms of league football. He doesn't cost anything in terms of wages. Or or what we could do is we can panic, buy a crap manager from Southampton who we've already bought 3 awful players from in the last 3 years, like Brian Bertrand, Vestergaard, and who else did we buy from Southampton? That's really bad. I can't remember this. We bought 3. Um,
Well, it was the Vestergaard Bertrand thing after the
yeah,
9-0,
yeah.
mainly, yeah.
So we've got a great opportunity to rebounce and rebuild over the next few seasons, or he can absolutely ruin us, and we're so ruined by financial fair play and bad deals that we're just stuck in the Championship forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity. I know I'm repeating myself, but we've made some mistakes. We've made some bad decisions, not just this season, but over the last 3 or 4 seasons. We bought some bad players. We've overspent, which has got us in trouble in other ways. We've rolled the dice and taken risks with the football club that have failed. And as a result of that, we're suffering the consequences of it as the supporters of the football club. The club this summer has an opportunity to put that right for themselves. Obviously, Top doesn't want to keep having to put his hand in his pocket and keep bailing this out over and over again and paying off bad managers' contracts and, having to suffer players earning 70, 80 grand a week that aren't even playing in the first team. It's all costing money. And ultimately, it's an opportunity. Now, for me, that opportunity is to change the direction of the football club and to bring the football club back to what we understand Leicester City to be as a set of supporters. And if I mean, let's get this clear. This Russell Martin business is a rumor. It's not a fact. The BBC have mentioned it. TalkSport are talking about it. It's not just idle rumor on some crap Facebook site. This is obviously got some. It's got some legs. There's someone knows something somewhere. It's not just rubbish. It's more of the same for me. It's just. I'm scared. It frightens me, Jono. It doesn't feel right. I'd much rather see someone come in who's got some strength. I'm not saying Sean Dykes, but a Sean Dykes-like character who's got some strength, that takes no nonsense, that won't accept second best on the pitch. And if you're not laying a performance down, it will tell you and drop you. We need some strength. We need to start clearing the culture of the club around. And that Russell, if that Russell Martin thing is the reality of this, and Ruud van Nistelrooy is going to soon get sacked after the weekend's game against Bournemouth, and Russell Martin's all lined up to take his place, it's not filling me with a lot of optimism for the change I think we need.
It just seems stale. Like it's not like the club tried something with Ruud or with Steve Cooper and thought, right, okay, we've tried this, didn't work, let's go down a different avenue. It's like, okay, we want to be this tippy tappy football who build from the back and stuff like that. Let's try a different manager who does the same thing with a group of players who have proven that they can't do it. A group of players who either don't care about the club anymore, who are just so poor that they're just bad no matter what formation we play.
I think the players, for me, I think you got a point there, Johnny, because I think some of the players this season, if they took a long, hard look at themselves, they've not laid it all out there this season, some of them. And when we got into that losing run after Christmas, which was just atrocious, it wouldn't surprise me if half of them went on the phone to their agent saying that when this lot go down, just get me somewhere else. And it's that mentality I'm talking about. Nigel Pearson built a mentality at our club, where no one was allowed to give anything but their absolute best for the club and be completely committed to playing for our club. He wouldn't accept anything else. And that's what I kind of expect from a Leicester player as a supporter. I expect for all the money they get paid for them to go out there and give their best, whether they're good enough or not. And I feel like we need a manager now to drive that culture back into our club. It's been too soft for too long, in my opinion.
Do you think it all, we had the success of the Premier League win, we had the success of the FA Cup, we've got this new training facility, we performed like a top club in, early 2000, beginning of this turn of this century, finishing fifth, on a consistent basis. We were performing at the highest levels. competing in semis and quarterfinals of European competitions. It kind of seemed like a cushy, lifestyle. We're having Yuri Tillemans, Madison, Harvey Barnes, really, really good players. All of a sudden, one bad transfer window, and it's just completely collapsed. Like, we need we, we need one thing to change, and it's not on the pitch, it's not the manager, it's the board. It's something's got to change in the higher up, that because we've seen in Manchester United, as soon as Alex Ferguson left, if it feels to me the same as us, as soon as Alex Ferguson left, I think he left for a reason. I think he left because he knew it was going to turn to a crap show. And over 10 years, it slowly killed the club. I think the same is happening to us. Some things happen, then it's slowly rotting inside. Now we can see it from the outside. You see what I mean? As soon as Vichai's passed away, we're slowly seeing these rumors of arguments, these rumors of like PSRs and stuff like that. It's all slowly just leaked out, and we need a reset. Not just players, not just the manager, a board. Not necessarily the owner yet, but a board. New director of football, Rookin out, Susan Whelan out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the situation we're in now, as it stands, for me, all right, it happens before this, but the big kind of financial and footballing tipping point in our club was the 22-23 season when we got relegated from the Premier League with a squad which, from memory, was the sixth or seventh highest paid in the Premier League at that time.
Yep.
And the whole club's financial structure was gambled, because that's the right word, gambled on us qualifying for Europe every season and finishing in those top places, because if you finish fifth or sixth, the prize money in the Premier League is somewhere around £30 million. Yeah. When you add on to that, qualifying for Europe and the money that brings in, you then manage to cover the costs of having a highly paid squad, right? And you don't fall foul of PSR. However, because we finished 18th that season rather than 8th, which is what the club, to my understanding, the finances of the club are based on, we got £3 million worth of prize money from the Premier League rather than 30. We got no European qualification and no money, given the fact that we made the semi-final of the Europa Conference League the season before and all the money that had brought in. And the whole thing was a financial catastrophe that despite the fact that we sold Wesley Fofana from memory for a silly amount of money, still meant we made a net £80 million loss. And that is the start of the rot that we're now suffering. Financially, at the PSR thing, the fact that our hands are tied in terms of when Ruud'S van Nistelrooy was going to Rudkin this January saying, Christ, you want me to keep this lot up? I desperately need to inject some players into this squad. And the club's looking back at him saying, sorry, mate, if we give you any money, we're going to end up getting a points deduction again. And all of it was on that. Now, Whelan has said in the past, when she's been questioned on that it was a realistic thing to do to base the club's finances on finishing in the top 8 because of the seasons that came before it. But the bit she's not bringing up when she's bringing that up is the fact that Brendan Rodgers had been publicly saying after games on the television for at least 18 months before that the club needed a rebuild. And they didn't do it. And they bought some rubbish, let's be honest. They bought Daka and Samari, cost a lot of money in both transfers and in wages. Bad recruitment makes it even worse because then you're carrying all these wages and you've spent all this money on players that are having no impact on your first team. And all of this together is like a domino effect that leads us to where we are now, which is as low as we've been in 10, 12 years.
It's just, I think the club panicked because obviously we were enjoying success in Europe, and as you said, the panic of just buying players and hoping we would stay in Europe. I mean, look at Forest. They came up, they gambled, they bought tons of players. They knew they're going to get a PSR, but they gambled the fact that they'll play their way out of it and get enough points to override the points deduction and stay up, which works. Look at them now. They're flying in the Premier League. They're fighting for Champions League football. But we played a similar gamble, lost badly, and then now we're in this PSR rut, and like this PSR thing now, I think, is it because we're we overspent in the championship, didn't we, to try and come back up? And then once we got back up, we're no longer in the championship's ruling. But now we're going back out. Now we're going back to the championship. They can now punish us, can't they, for the season before?
My understanding of this new, we've been referred for investigation again by the Premier League, not the EFL, and my understanding of that is that we can lose £105 million over a 3-year cycle. That's the rule,
From
right?
the Premier League.
Yeah, but when we got away with it this season, they closed the loophole in the law to say that, well, if you're in the Championship, you get out of jail. They've closed that now, and this most recent investigation into Leicester City also found that when we got away with it because of that was wrong, right? However, they're not going to overturn the last ruling, so we can't get historically prosecuted. Yeah. However, my understanding of it is that this current one goes up to the 24 season, and it's likely, based on our accounts, that we'll get another one for the 25 season as well over that three-year cycle. So there's 2 potentially coming. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to get a points deduction, because there's some football experts or legal football experts that are saying, because of the argument that's going on between the EFL and the Premier League at the minute about how they interact with each other, because we're relegated, it's likely that the points deduction may sit as a suspended one until we get promoted again to the Premier League. It's not necessarily going to happen in the EFL. However, there's something, they're going to try and nail us. Let's be honest, Jono, because we've got away with it twice by getting a cute lawyer who's read the rule book, and found a loophole. They can't wait, the football authorities, to absolutely bury us. They can't wait. And they keep coming at us. Meanwhile, Man City, right, have had nothing at all.
No.
Zero. It's double standards, John. It's wrong. This whole PSR thing is creating a glass ceiling where the 3 teams that go up every year go straight back down. It's so wrong for me.
It is wrong. But here's my side. If you go to a country in the Middle East, you know for a fact that you can't, hold hands with your wife unless you're married. Do I think that law is stupid? Yes. I think you can hold hands with your partner. But if I go to that country and do it, I know the law. If I get thrown in prison, that's my fault for breaking the rule. Makes sense. If we know that if we spend over a certain amount of money and more than we earn, we get punished. So I know it's wrong. I know it favours the big clubs of Manchester City. I know they've not been prosecuted yet for the allegations they've had against them. But as a club, why would you spend almost 3 times as much money, or however it was, over your limit as a club? Why would you allow that to happen in the first place?
You're playing roulette with a football club. If your strategy pays off, no one says a word. We don't say a word. We don't sit here speaking about it. It disappears. But you should know it's a bit like running a business and taking a massive gamble when you've got 40 or 50 people working for you, knowing that if that risky gamble that you've taken doesn't pay off, all of these people are out of work. It's playing like, as Trump shouted at Zelensky in that thing, you're playing with World War III. It's a similar thing. You're risking everything. You're risking the club's long-term future by rolling the dice and gambling and trying to build the club into a top eight European qualifying team every season when we've got a small stadium that can't financially support that. You should be building the club up to that incrementally over a number of years, not trying to run before you can walk all at once, in my opinion.
Exactly. This is what I'm coming across. They projected they would be a bigger team than they are. Put all the money into players, and then it didn't pay off. We all these players lost our place, got relegated, when they should have thought, hang on, so let's not let's try and build on. We've got a little bit. Let's buy a few key players, not buy loads of rubbish. And let's not put players on long contracts. But they didn't. They put they put rubbish players on big contracts on big wages. So we were stuck with them. And you know, Michael E says, I can't believe Vardy wants to stay and the club didn't offer him a new contract. But the problem is he was costing £140,000 a week. There's no way the club was going to pay that much for a 39-year-old striker. No
Well,
way.
you dig in your PSR hole deeper as well. How many players can we get in for that wage? We can get 3 or 4 players in, decent players in for that money. And that's how the club's got to think now. We've made our bed, we've got to lie in it. The days of having players like Schmeichel and Vardy on 150, 160 grand a week are over for us. We've got to start building. Yeah, we've got to build a squad, Jono. Having those big stars now for us is way out of the question.
The only clubs that could afford 140 grand a week are clubs like Chelsea, Man City, Man United, Arsenal, Spurs. Can you find me another club outside those 6 that are paying that wages for a player on a weekly basis?
You speak to Fulham fans, you speak to Bournemouth fans, you speak to Brighton fans, who financially, structure-wise, are not dissimilar to us. Nottingham Forest fans as well. I mean, their club's not dissimilar to us in terms of its revenue and expenditure on wages, etc. And they'll all tell you the same thing. They have to find gems, develop them, get benefit out of them for 2 or 3 seasons, and then sell them on for a profit in order to maintain the financial structure of the club without falling foul of PSR. It's important. And somehow we've lost that. We've lost that as a club. We've just bought rubbish that we can't get rid of.
This comment from David I think is really valid. We've got an amazing group of young players. We've got Ben Nelson, a great defender coming through. We've got Monga, Jake Evans. We've got
Will Alves.
We've got McAteer. We've got the creatings of a very, very good young team that doesn't need a heavy investment. We need some key players like Harry Winks. We need some bigger players like a decent goalkeeper, a decent midfielder for the core, and have the youngsters around them. But you don't need to go and spend this summer tons of money and then break PSR rules. I think this might sound really bad as a fan, and I know, people know what's happened, but I think to the club, I think personally, on a deep down level, I think the club should accept this punishment from the EFL. Stop trying to wiggle your way around it in, loopholes and lawyers. You made the risk of doing it by overspending too much money. If a kid breaks the law, they go to prison. You got to accept your punishment. You don't get a lawyer to find a silly loophole. I want Top to experience the fact that what he's doing to the club is affecting, what it's like, have the punishment.
I mean, if we could take the punishment now this season and get it out of the way,
it was now.
just take it and put it behind you. It's just going to keep coming. The club's got to get its financial foundations on the right footing quickly, or else it's just going to keep coming and coming. Where they keep overspending to try and and making bad mistakes. It's such a gamble unless you get it right, and you've got the right scouting going on, and you've got the right management structure, and the players that are coming in are going to suit the system. They're the right players for the right money. There's a potential there to sell them for profit a couple of years later. You're doing bad business, and we got too heavily involved in trying to buy ready-made players, and it just backfired, and it's cost us a fortune.
The scary thing is that I'm not a financial expert. I'm rubbish at maths. I'm awful at business. I've no idea how a big business works and stuff like that. Yeah, I can see these problems lingering, and Terence has summed it up. He needs better. He's a headless chicken running a big football club, and obviously not as big as some Premier League teams, but a decent sized football club. yeah, he needs some guidance. He needs help to one, connect with the fans. That's gone. The connection with it felt like a family during 2019, during COVID and when we were in the Premier League. We felt like a family of fans and we're so connected to the club. That's gone. That needs to return. He needs being told by a financial advisor or a new director of football by saying, this is what you need to do to help get better players on low wages and sell the ones on higher wages. But I think he's stubborn. I think he wants to keep Rudkin and all the footballing staff.
I don't think all the time while Top's the owner of the club that Rudkin's going anywhere, Jono. I think the two of them are very, very close, both personally and professionally. And I think he's heavily relied since, bless him, his father passed on Whelan and Rudkin to continue the work at the football club. Let's not forget he inherited a very big business as well that hasn't got a business that his father ran. And he's also got married, had children, and all sorts of things over these last couple of years. He's needed support. I would agree with you that some of that support has been bad. It's been bad advice, bad decisions. They've made mistakes. We're paying the price for that now. And the club's got to quickly cut its cloth to its means, and it's got to get the right people in and around it to make the best of what we've got. And I absolutely agree with you. There's a nucleus of young players there. And I'd add Luke Thomas into that mix as well, who I think has been excellent since he came in the side for Christensen.
Well, I think Larry say if he appoints Russell Martin, he needs to all of that. I mean, with the managers he's signed, I think when he bought Steve Cooper, was that purely because of two reasons? One, he saved team from relegation before, and two, he was no signing on fee. There was no paying out under the team. It was a free manager. Do you think he signed him because he knows football and thought he's a correct tactician that we as fans like?
Well, there's a guy around the football rumour mill called Fabrizio Romano, who a lot of people respect. When he posts something, people know that there's some smoke to it. It's not just a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
The morning that Steve Cooper signed as the manager of Leicester City, Fabrizio Romano put out some social media posts saying that Graham Potter was becoming Leicester City's manager that day. By 4:00 that afternoon, we signed Steve Cooper.
Yeah.
Now, there are lots of rumours in there as to why the Potter thing went wrong. But when the Potter thing did go wrong, so much time had lapsed. We were rolling into the pre-season in terms of, we need to get a manager in quickly to start buying some players, laying down some strategy, training this team, taking them in the pre-season games, etc., 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 etc. That I think, if I'm honest with you, he was easy. He was there. He was local. He was out of work. The target that clearly Rudkin had been desperate to try and get, because it wasn't the first time he'd gone in for Graham Potter, had turned his back on us again, and we quickly needed someone. That's why I think we signed Steve Cooper, Jono.
And then we had the Ruud Destroy from Man United beat us twice comfortably. Not a difficult task. Their football looks decent. With Man United, how poor they've been all season, I think under Ruud has been some of their best football this season against teams like us. We signed him as the hype. To be honest, I wanted Ruud from looking at his football, but I agree in hindsight, maybe it was a bad decision hiring such an inexperienced manager in such a really critical season. And this, to me, from an open point of view, looks like a massive opportunity to this transfer window. It's the biggest opportunity to reset this club. There's no other there's no other window like this to fix the problems. I can't think of any others.
The reset that Brendan Rodgers was calling for 4 years ago, is still needed. It's still not been done. We're still playing the same players, not all of them obviously, but a chunk of them that were no good back then. We are still making the same mistakes. The club still needs the same reset now, and this is the big chance, and it's the chance to avert what could be a very long and quite dour spell outside of the Premier League if we're not careful.
I think with this is a new era of Leicester City, which we've enjoyed. We've seen Crystal Palace win their first trophy in 119 years. We've seen Newcastle win their first trophy in 70 years. I think this is going to be one of those sort of journeys for us. I think the damage that's been done over the past 5 years is going to take 10, 15 years to fix.
You know
I think,
what? Why not just play the kids next season? Right, next season off. Don't worry too much about putting pressure on to get promoted. Get them kids into the team that will care about playing for us, and we'll give everything, and just have a go.
yeah,
You know, we're going for some potentially. I know it's not fact. Some, another one of these managers where you're going to watch the ball pass around the back four for half an hour, and you're going to want to ponder your own existence while you're sat there watching it potentially. I don't want to see that now. I've seen that, got the T-shirt, been there, done that. I'm not interested anymore. We need to start changing our club around for the better.
yeah. We need exciting football. Like Ranieri came in, had an idea. Right, I'm just going to play 4. Back then, 4-4-2 wasn't the norm. He came in, said, "We're doing 4-4-2, and just play right. Let's hoof up the pitch." We're like Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers didn't play boring tippy tappy out the back football, and we thrived for a long time under that system. Well, we don't want as fans. Our song is we counter attack. Where's that? I've not seen us counter attack once in the last bloody 3 games of football. Maybe once for the Vardy goal, but that's it.
Yeah, and there's another point, and it's a whole other subject, but we spent all of the season largely starving Jamie Vardy of any opportunity to score, of any sort of ball, any sort of quality ball to get a shot off. Yet once we got relegated, all of a sudden we can start playing like that, and you sit there and you start thinking, where's this been all season? Why have we got a guy up front who's one of the most successful strikers in Premier League history, and we're starving the bloke of any opportunity to score a goal?
Right. So since we lost to Liverpool, we lost to Wolves, we've beaten Southampton, drew to Forest, beat Ipswich. We've out of our last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out of our last 6 games, we've won 2 and drawn 2 and lost 2. That sort of form isn't relegation worthy in my eyes.
If we'd have played all season the way we played against Ipswich, Southampton, etc., the last 3 or 4 games, if we played, Forest, if we'd given that sort of level of commitment and performance all season, we would at least been within a shouting chance of staying up come the end of the season. It would have been competitive. We just threw games down the drain week after week after week for weeks after Christmas, and he just sat there watching it thinking, you're just repeating the same mistakes every week. Yeah. What are you doing? And the players just looked apathetic to it, like I didn't care.
This is what annoys me more. There's a difference between being really bad and players trying, and being really bad knowing that you could be much better. It's like going. We know what we're capable of. We put great performances against Arsenal. I know we lost against Arsenal, but we beat them. Even against West Ham, we played. Where was that football against West Ham when we first got appointed? If we played all that all season and Ruud put his foot on the floor and said, "Oh, this is how we're going to play. If you don't like it, you're not playing." But he just allowed. We saw the same team week in, week out, no changes. No matter players say, "Oh, I play crap today, but I'm not playing next week."
Yeah, and one thing I'd add to that is it's been clear, even in this better run of form lately, that Van Nistelrooy cannot set a defence up effectively. That's absolutely clear to me. Because even though we play better, we still look absolutely like a leaking sieve at the back.
Against Ipswich, if they had a decent striker, we would have conceded more. We would have conceded. They hit the post. When they had that shot at the post, where was Justin? He was nowhere to be seen. He was gone. He had a massive pocket of space around him to run. Ruud. I hope Ruud is gone. but don't panic and get a easy, crappy, free manager in to replace them. I'd either keep Ruud or take a few weeks, or 3 or 4 weeks, to really find a proper manager who interview them fully. Say, not just a quick manager like Steve Cooper was, or you know what I mean. Don't panic.
Yeah. Change the culture at the club. It's an opportunity. The manager sets the tone for the whole footballing side of the senior men's team. Change the culture. Jump the tracks. Get away from this. The players have had way too much opinion and say over the last season. Way too much.
Well, before we go, the one thing that has upset me about the club is how the disconnect. Because as soon as Kevin De Bruyne left that pitch against Bournemouth, Man City posted, "We're building a statue of him." Immediately, we're building a statue of him. Vardy is, we're a lot smaller club than Man City. We're a lot smaller. Vardy is been one of the top. He's the 14th highest goal scorer in the Premier League history, and Leicester City have not even announced we're building a statue for him. How much of a disconnect is that to the fans about the fact that you're not even listening to us by saying we want a statue of him at the stadium, and you've not even flirted with the idea of it?
The club has become notorious for not communicating with the fans. It's just a wall of silence. You see some of the other statements that other relegated clubs put out, their owners put out, their directors of football, etc., to the fans. The commitment to the club and the apology for not being good enough, etc., etc. We don't get that. We get very little from our club in that way, and it is absolutely a factor in the growing disconnect between the fans and the actual running of the club. Is the fact they just don't talk to us.
No.
And there might well be a statue they've been talking about, but they don't ever tell us anything.
No, it's not good. And well, Terence has said nobody knows how good Ruud could be in the Championship. I mean, if you want Ruud, you have to reset the team and buy him players that he wants. That if he's staying, he wants buy players that fits his style of football. That's all I'm going to say on that. Don't just buy random players and hope it works. Sell all the rubbish and let him choose the players.
Yeah, I mean, who knows whether he was told when he signed for the club whether he'd have money to spend in January or not?
Definitely did, because he did that snarky interview saying that he wanted players and we didn't get them. He must have been told that he won.
Maybe then, but yeah, I mean, he's got his frailties. He's got his weaknesses. He's by no means the finished article, but he understands the club now, and he certainly understands the players. He's been through some tricky times with us over the last few months, and he's had to suck that up and get out there and give post-match press conferences after defeat, and he's stuck with it. Yep. There's some credit in that. I agree with you. He needs to be given the support if they're going to keep him. They can't, because that will get drained. That squad will get drained. The players come after next week when the season's over. You'll see announcement after announcement of players moving on, I'm sure.
Definitely. Well, I think, we've got one more game left in the season against Bournemouth. Any hopes for that, really?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, this last 3 weeks for me it's like having my old club back a little bit. I actually sit down, or either at the ground or in front of my telly to watch a game, and there's actually a level of optimism for me now. The performances we put in over these last few weeks, for me, it's like we found our mojo a bit again. But it's too little, too late, Jono. Why couldn't we do this? 4 months ago. Why is it taken till it's too late before we started to do that? And some of it, for me, is enforced player changes that weren't. He had to make those changes because of injuries and issues that have massively improved the team's performance. I put Casey McAteer in that bracket. Since De Cordova-Reid got injured, etc., McAteer came into the team by default, and he's done a much better job. Luke Thomas, for me, has been a revelation since he came back in. That game he played against Liverpool, and he had Salah in his pocket for almost the whole game. Yeah. He was outstanding. I thought he was fantastic. But Why is the coaching staff of the club not seeing this on the training pitch and selecting them for the games?
They don't care. They just either just say, well, you know what, we'll just throw players out. We'll throw the same team out. Just run around cones, and just, we'll just do this, do that. It just seems so. You must be tactically inept or just stubborn. The fact that you're letting the same mistakes happen each week. But no, we will end it there. But going into Bournemouth game, I hope we do win, because finishing where we are now gives us more money than we do if we finish one place below. And if Monga scores, he'll be the youngest goal scorer in Premier League history. So hopefully he does score. But any final words on that?
Yeah, listen, I like the fact that we're giving these guys a chance. I like the way we're going out and playing our football at the minute. I think it's it's a relief, having watched so much rubbish this season, to actually see us go out and think, do you know what? I think we got half a chance. It's nice to feel. And I feel the same about playing Bournemouth this weekend. I think absolutely no reason why we can't go out there and get something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll win. I think we'll win 2-1 and finish the season on a high, as Terence has just said. Gone 3 games unbeaten. Finish the game in the last 4 games unbeaten, and be one of the most informed teams out of the last 5 games and get relegated. Anyway, well, cheers, Simon, for joining me. Well, we'll have one more show where we next week before we stop for the summer. So yeah, what's your score prediction going into?
This Sunday I'll go for a score draw. I'll take 2-2. Nice, entertaining 2-2, decent draw. They're a good side, Bournemouth. They're well organised. They're going to struggle to keep their manager this summer, because he's gained a lot of.
He's good.
Yeah, he's got a lot of compliments this season from the way he's set them up. But I think the way we're playing at the minute, we'll give a good account of ourselves again and finish the season off. It'll be interesting to see who plays instead of Vardy as well on Sunday.
Absolutely. Well, cheers, Simon, for joining me. Really, really appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.
We've got Jamie's show on Sunday morning before the final game of the season. Then I'll have Phil's show on Monday just to round up the season and continue on our rants of how poor we've been and future managers and PSR. But cheers all for watching, and we'll see you soon.